Bob Ross. It's like, oh God.
They call me OG Bob.
But we good?
We're
Okay. Hey everybody, this is Raven and
good.
Ryan
Ryan.
over here at Lake Air Pools. We're doing our, I keep forgetting what we called it.
Laps chat.
Laps Chat, there it is. Laps Chat episode 4,
Yep.
I think is what we're on now.
Episode 4 today.
Episode 4, and today's topic is going to be like greenery, plant life, foliage, and weather in general, and what it can do to whatever body of water that you have in your backyard. So, to really dive right into this is springtime while
Yep.
we're doing this.
As it's raining right now.
Yeah, it's literally raining outside while we speak. A couple days ago, we actually got 2 inches of rain where I'm at. It rained last night. Winds are coming in. You get lightning and everything, and yeah, sad puppy dog.
I'm playing.
But that stuff, especially for new pool owners or folks who haven't had a pool in a long time, I don't think they realize how much a couple inches of rain can actually do to a swimming pool.
I think it makes it to where people become reactive instead of proactive, and they just don't really realize,
Yeah.
like it is just water, like what's actually going on or the process that's happening as like rain's falling or foliage is getting in. And so I feel like pretty much that's what we're going to talk about
Yeah.
today.
Yeah, because we've talked about in the past, like a couple episodes ago, the reactive over proactive, and just trying to always stay ahead of the game. And rain, pollen season, anything like that that's outside of your means of control
Yep.
is one of the ones where if you're not being proactive with it, in 24 hours, I mean, you'll have a green pool or a brown pool.
You've already lost it.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think it's a common misconception that people think they're harder to take care of over like the summertime when it's really hot. I think springtime is probably the hardest time to take care of a pool because of all of the blooms, everything's falling, and we just basically have a huge water net that's catching everything that it can, whether it's flowers, twigs, foliage,
Mhm.
blooms, all of the dirt that's being blown around because people are mowing their yards, just kind of everything.
Yeah. And that, we can just start off with springtime. That's where we're in, like, what is it doing? So, when you get a lot of rain and you've got a bunch of trees, Texas live oaks, Mexican white oak, all these other cedars, pecans, all the stuff that's local, and it's dropping pollen like crazy. We'll have alerts on the weather apps saying, hey, there's a pollen alert. Then it rains. That rain catches that pollen, drags it to the ground, and throws it into your pool. We have so many people that they'll tell us, hey, my pool turned green overnight, but I don't think it's algae, and it's not. You get what we call like pollen green or nitrogen green, and it's just there's so much contaminant in the pool. It's not algae yet, it's just pollen. And in cases like that, we shock the fire out of it, throw in 3 or 4 times your normal amount of chlorine just to get it back to blue, just to oxidize all that material that's getting thrown in there.
Because, and what Raven means when he's talking about oxidizing it out, the atmosphere pushed all of this stuff into the pool, and when we're trying to oxidize it out, all we're really doing is taking and forcing all of that contaminant and pushing it straight back up into the atmosphere.
That, and any form of algae that may be kind of piggybacking off of that pollen, just giving it really, really heavy shocks, it just helps out a ton. It is good practice to always kind of be into this routine. That way you're never caught unaware. But I can tell you the best stipulation is just take care of your pool to begin with. If you had a great chlorine level to begin with, your borates were good, all that stuff, well, it's going to be tough to get that pollen green, but still, it'll catch up real quick.
Yeah, so your best formula for right now is trying to get out of that thought process of being in winter mode and start thinking about being into spring where we've got to empty the baskets a lot. And for most of you who have a wooded backyard, we're talking about breakfast, lunch, and dinner at least
Yeah.
3 times a day. One of the biggest things that we see are people are still thinking about wintertime. The water's still too cold to swim, but they want to keep their run times still in this winter mode where they're only running like
Yeah.
maybe 4 hours a day. And even though we're not in this 90 to 100 degrees yet, we've got to start bumping these run times up to probably around 10 to 12 hours because we've got so much going into the pool. The pool already thinks that it's summertime, and instead of you putting all of this contaminant and particulate into the pool, it's Mother Nature that's putting it
Yeah.
all into it. So it's harder to take care of the pool during spring because we aren't physically using it. We're not in those habits yet, but yet we have more, I think probably more contaminant going into the pool now than when we were actually swimming, having
Yeah.
pool parties and all of that type of stuff. It's not the same, it's just, it's different and it's more. So I think probably our next step is to kind of start breaking down like what's going into the pools and why. Like blooms, for example, like right now everybody's oak trees have been shedding over the past couple of weeks. Thank God mine are finally like pretty much done. And of course I don't know all the chemistry when it comes to this, but in pretty much every bloom, whether it's a oak squiggle, red oak blooms, any of the other stuff that's going
Yeah.
on, pecan blooms, they're practically nothing but nitrogen.
Nitrogen and phosphates.
Right.
And those two are major food sources for algae growth.
Right, which is why we see so much algae
Yes.
going on right now, because if you're not running enough and you're still putting chemicals in like you did when it was February,
Hmm.
algae is just like marching right in, knocking on the front door and not even waiting for you to answer.
Another thing about it too is you get, same thing. You've got your cool water. You think we're still in winter time and everything. Your chlorine level's only at a 2 part per million, which is great if nothing's happening.
Right,
You get a storm and all those blooms fall in. That 2 part per million is gone in like 12 hours.
absolutely.
Because it's trying to sanitize what has fallen into the pool.
Which then leaves nothing left
Yeah.
to hang out and keep the pool
Yeah.
nice.
So another thing too that I want to talk about when we're talking about storms is lightning.
Yep,
That is a big one that for the longest time, a lot of people just really had no idea what was going on. So let's say you've got 2 storms. One is just regular rainfall, like what's going on this morning. Well, that's bad. But a thunderstorm is on a different level. Yes, there's rain. Yes, there's wind. But lightning is the key.
because I've been saying this for a few weeks now.
Park one, please. Ryan, park one.
Guess who won't be answering the phone right now? So I've been kind of putting it out there, and I'm 99.9% sure that I'm right, but I just want to make sure that we're kind of talking about it. It's not necessarily the rainwater, even though there is contaminant and stuff in the rainwater, microorganisms, but isn't it true that it's pretty much the lightning that's spreading like so much nitrogen and it's shoving it into the pools, and that's really more where our overnight or our instantaneous
Yeah.
rain is coming from?
So lightning is plasma. That's what it is. It is beyond hot matter that is flying through the air. Anything that is even remotely near it is being basically ionized in the atmosphere.
It's technically nature's fertilizer.
Yeah. And when it's ionizing, it's making a lot of elements that are flying around heavier so that they naturally fall. It's one of the reasons why you can see, okay, I got some rain and my yard's a little green. But, I got a thunderstorm and my yard is really green within like a couple days. That's the lightning
You
doing
really
its thing.
see that if you've been planting like a home garden, because I know
Yeah.
there's plenty of times that I see my garden and I'm like, oh man, it's not as big as I want, or it's still a little small, and then we get a storm, and it's like 24 to 36 hours, and all of a sudden it's like I've been gone for 6 weeks, and it's just like Jack
Yep.
Magic Beanstalk, and it's just grown massive overnight.
And that's the lightning doing its thing during those really aggressive storms. But so that's another one too. Rain we try to always tell people be proactive. That's what we always push. Big thunderstorms like that, I've seen even the best pools out there have a little reaction to it. And I mean, you do the best you can, but this is just giving you the knowledge to fight it.
You're never going to
You
be
know.
100%
Yeah.
ahead of the game. There's always going to be something that happens.
Yeah.
So the real thing is are you setting yourself up for success, whether it comes to the amount of runtime that you're doing? Is your filter, whether it's sand or cartridges or DE, is the sand still, young enough
Yeah.
and fresh enough that it's being able to filter properly? Same thing with your cartridges or your DE. And then again, if those things are right, the amount of chemical
No.
almost is a little negligible
Yeah.
on what you actually have into
Yep.
the pool. So, yeah, another thing that I've been thinking about, and it kind of coincides with spring, and it might kind of coincide with maybe we haven't done a lot over the winter, whether we're covered or we're not covered, but more on the not covered side as far as having a pool covered, is so many leaves and particulate and just debris falls in the pool. And if you're one of these people that kind of I'm going to take care of it in the summer, I'm going to let it kind of go away from me in the winter, and then I'll pick it back up in spring. One of your biggest combatants is usually staining.
Man, I was just thinking that.
And it's because the leaves sit on the bottom, and not only are they sitting there, I mean, they're basically making tea. They're saturated
Yep.
and they're leaching out all of this nitrogen, everything else that they have going in there. And then on top of that, because they will stain your pool plaster black in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Nitrogen stains are black, really
They-
dark, and they are hard to get off.
The industry, a lot of people know it as organic staining.
Yeah.
Is what they call it because it's coming from plant material. So, but yeah, that's one of those where even a single leaf sitting on the bottom for just a month, you'll go to finally brush it off, and there's an exact
Nice
imprint,
little imprint.
of where it has
Yeah.
been.
And to coincide with that, acorns.
Oh my gosh.
Do not, if you've got red oak trees or any other tree that's producing any form of a acorn type bloom, as soon as that acorn hits the water, you need to have a pool cleaner trying to get it out, your 16-year-old trying to get it out, or anybody
Yeah.
trying to get it out, because they start leaching nitrogen and everything else immediately. And I cannot tell you how many times we've gone to a pool to clean it up. Acorns are scattered everywhere, and as we're vacuuming them up, there's nice little brown and black spots that are everywhere.
Yeah. It's the same thing. Pecans are the same thing too
Yep,
for the folks that have those.
absolutely.
Those are the seeds of these trees. So they are packed full of all the
It's
little material
nutrients.
that they need to sprout. So when they hit that water, they immediately start deteriorating, and it's ridiculous.
And of course, sometimes people don't care. Their plaster's 20 years old.
Yep.
They know they need a new plaster job. They're not worried about it anymore. But for those of you who just have had a pool 1 to 2 seasons, you were able to get on that COVID list. You got it built. You're a new pool owner. You spent probably more money than the normal guy did 10 years ago getting a pool built because of COVID pricing and
Yeah.
all of that. I mean, if for my money, if that were me, I would be just distraught every time I went out to my pool and looked and saw
like a little
brand new
stain.
white plaster, because I'm a white plaster fan, and see all these little pits and stains, and it just
Yeah.
gets to where if you aren't on it super quick after you get it off and there's a stain, you almost cannot get it off permanently without doing something like a no drain acid wash or something like that. But in doing so, we're cutting into our plaster a little bit.
Yeah, you're shortening the life of your plaster every time you have to do that kind of stuff. You're spending more money on specialty products,
Yep.
specialty chemicals to get it done, and the answer was 5 minutes of your time.
Yep. And I know that we're all giving our time away in a lot of different areas, whether it's to our job, the company we own, our kids, to, try to do anything for yourself for it to be, like a discipline aspect or self-motivation. And yeah, sometimes the pool gets left out. And I know the older I get, my old man is really starting to come out because I am starting to love mowing the yard, playing stick pickup,
Oh,
making
hell,
sure my hot tub cover looks good. And it's just like, I don't know where the old man light switch kicks on at, but it has turned on.
Mine kicked on like 9 years ago. But one other thing I want to add real quick, because that's basically all of what storms and springtime are doing. But the one thing I want to add is we are heading into summer. May is right around the corner. Actually, as this is being recorded,
Like, very around the
yeah,
corner.
it,
Like a
in
few
fact,
days.
by the time y'all see this video, May will already be here. We'll be in May. Uh, you know how Texas is, Central Texas especially, where 78 today, and in 1 week it's going to be 95 out there, and we'll be in summer till the end.
Yeah, until
When-
October.
The difference between 70-degree water and 80-degree water is night and day. Algae is growing around 2.5 times faster in that 10-degree difference. And then from 80 to 90, in some of these pools that get a lot hotter, it's the same thing. It's about 2.5 times faster. So your window of trying to prevent algae or, jumping on it if something happens starts to shrink the hotter the water is.
Rapidly. So, this is something that Dad used to always tell people, and I think that you're going to remember the number more than I will. But it's basically, so I have people come in all the time and they're like,
I know where you're going.
There's, like the pool still looks good and I've got one little patch of green on a wall. And so we'll say, perfect, like let's shock it, let's get some acid in it if that's what we need to do. We got to brush the whole pool. And they're like, yeah, but I don't want to brush the whole pool because it's just right there.
No.
And then they're like, well, I don't really want to put any algicide in because the only algae is just right here. There's a difference between the only algae and the algae that is visible. And Dad would always give this number on the spore reproduction rate.
So it's like a cellular reproduction rate, and I swear every time he said the number, it changed.
Yeah, fishing stories.
The number got bigger with each passing year, but it was something like, depending on the temperature, it's like 1 million cellular reproductions per cubic foot per hour or something, and all it's trying to say is it's an exponential number.
It's like compounding interest is what it is. It
So,
is just continuing to grow.
let's say you had one little algae spore, and in 30 minutes you've got 2. 30 minutes you've got 4. 30 minutes you've got 8. Well, it doesn't sound like a lot until 24 hours goes by, and you're at tens of thousands.
And it's way faster than that.
Yeah, and it's insane how quickly the cells can start changing because algae wants to be in the water.
And that's why you see people say, I looked at the pool yesterday and it was fine, and when I woke up this morning, it was great.
Yeah. And
So
that's
long story
yeah.
short, if you see any algae at all, even if it's the tiniest bit in the corner, your whole pool is already infested.
Yeah, and
You got to brush the whole thing, you got to shock it, you've got to get algicide in it. And common misconception, this is where a lot of people have a problem where they don't clear the algae up as quick as they could. They forget or they just don't do a follow-up shock within 24 hours after that initial. And then there's one more thing I want to talk about just quickly. I'm sure we'll do another episode on this. But we're talking about springtime vegetation. Let's shift gears super quick to vegetation that's hanging into the pool on like planters.
Man.
Like planters that are around the pool, whether it was like built into the pool or people just have like flower pots and stuff, and then they've got like English ivy or potato vine or any of that that's like growing
rose
down
plants, anything.
into the water. And that's kind of just like one of those things where instead of the leaves and the stems taking water from the pool and going to the plant, you're basically having a straw that goes from the plant straight down into the water, but it's putting all of the plant juices and things that are causing algae and chlorine decay.
That kind of stuff, especially folks who have like shrubbery and bushes and stuff like on the back side and it's all grown in, you may as well be having a pool party 24 hours a day.
I agree.
And that's the kind of chemical usage we're talking about if you actually have plants that are hanging down in it. And yeah, I get it. It looks pretty, it looks nice, but man, that kind of stuff, you're asking to have a rough time.
And the simple answer to that is, instead of you having to empty your baskets 3 times a day because we're no longer in spring, it's just get out there with your gardening scissors and keep that stuff trimmed so that it's not literally hanging into the water.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about close. I'm not talking about when the wind blows, it blows a few leaves or something like that on it. Literally when your plants are in the water, and I see it all the time. And literally just a couple of clips, and I've even had a few people get upset because I've clipped their plants for them. And really, it's not because it's in my way. It's because I'm trying to do you a favor so that your pool has the ability to look as good as it can for as long as it can without the maximum amount of work from them or the maximum amount of work from us, when a simple little clip of a potato vine or something like that just makes it go away.
It's ridiculous. So, but that's actually it as far as a lot of the greenery goes.
Yeah, because we could get into it super hardcore on a really scientific level. But thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
And keep coming back for as much as you can possibly watch. And like we've said in a few of the other episodes, anything that y'all have specific questions about, we would love any sort of a comment. And especially if there's something that you want to see an episode on, or for us to dive deeper into any of the things that we've already talked about, all you got to do is let us know. And we're going to just keep on trucking with making as much information that's real talk to send out to you. So,
yeah. Thanks, everybody.
buddy, you were so good. You were just asleep the whole time.